everyone, I am Vibha Chauhan and welcome to the classes for now clear. So today I'll explain the fifth and last chapter of Class 10th Economics, and the chapter that we have got here is Consumer Rights. So consumer rights. Now the name itself says what we'll discuss about in this chapter, what we are going to study in this chapter. Now you might have seen in newspapers, in news and in magazines too that there are many consumer court verdicts coming about. Like there are so many consumer court verdicts. And why are there so many? Generally because many consumers have persisted and struggled against the, you could say that, discrimination and injustice. Now, in what ways they can exercise their power, what rights do they have, and after that all those consumers, why do they feel like they have been denied to a just treatment, like in what cases there can be no justice to them. This is all we'll discuss in this chapter. Now basically in this chapter we'll talk about the consumer rights, like who are the consumers in first place, and after that what rights do they have, what they can exercise, what they can do to exercise their power. All we'll discuss in this chapter. So without any further ado, let's get started with the first topic, that is the consumer in the marketplace. So the consumer in the marketplace. Now you know what, that in markets we have two people. Like if we categorize them in two categories, there are two people. First are producers, and second are consumers. Now producers, as we have already talked about earlier in previous chapters, like those who work in the sectors like agriculture, industry or tertiary sectors, in services. And consumers are the ones who in the marketplace purchase the goods and services in return for money, obviously. So you could say that the consumer are the people who buy the goods and services in marketplace. So that is a place of consumer in the marketplace. Like if they move, if they do some action, then they can only become consumer. And after that, you know what, that we have been talking about rules and regulation to maintain the marketplace. Like in the preceding chapters we saw that there must be some rules and regulation for more and development. The workers should be promoted for more development in the country, and for that we talked about that there should be no exploitation of the workers in the unorganized sector, and what are the ways in which the interest would be low by the money lenders. Like there would not be so much high interest rate by the big money lenders, like we saw in the case in chapter 3 we talked about Swapna's case. Like there are many money lenders who force the workers, who force the small farmers to sell their lands for timely loans, for paying back their loans at a very high interest rate as well. So you could say that for that we saw that in marketplace we have to save and promote all those workers, small farmers and the lowest rate of the people, and that should be considered for the consumers as well. Like we have talked about rules and regulation for all those people, for small farmers, for workers in unorganized sector and many more things. But what about the consumers? Same happens to consumers as well. They can be exploited as well. And in marketplace there are many things. Like what is the situation that becomes in the market? What happens that you know what, that in a market there can be so much like injustice to the consumer. Whenever there is the main purpose of all those producers, of all those shopkeepers, to sell their items and products, and the situation becomes like if you didn't like whatever you have bought, just go elsewhere. Like their main purpose is to sell, is to complete sell, otherwise they have no responsibility over any product or item. But there must be some responsibility of that shopkeeper as well. Like if there is some defective, if that product is not good, if there is some adulteration of the food, and like there is some misprinting on that food, the item has been expired, and many more things can be there. Like there must be some responsibility of those shopkeepers as well. Shouldn't be there, but there is not, as we have seen in many cases, and that is why that becomes the position of the consumers in the marketplace. Like if you didn't like whatever you bought, just go elsewhere. If you don't have like whatever you want, so you could say that becomes a case in a marketplace for the consumers, and for that there is an effort that has been started as well, that is consumer movement, as we shall discuss later in this chapter. Now after that, what happens that in a market, whenever there are big manufacturers, you could say that in a small number there are big manufacturers with so much reach, power, money, and all the purchasers, all the consumers are scattered and are buying in small quantities, then this kind of situation becomes like there would be, as we have already seen that companies, big companies with so much power, money and reach can manipulate the market, and that is why consumers are being denied to have just treatment. There is not just treatment for them. So you could say that because of the big companies, as the manufacturers are in small quantity and the producers are, you could say, consumers are in so much quantity and are scattered as well. It's not like they would buy the same thing from the same shop. They will go to many shops, they will explore many shops, and that is why by which all the big companies and the manufacturers are being profited. And even if there is some default in that product, then company what would do that? It would blame all the responsibility onto the shopkeeper, and shopkeeper would just that dodge that to the consumers. After that, we have got the next topic, that is consumer movement. So consumer movement. Now consumer movement arises out of the dissatisfaction of the consumer to all those producers. Now over a long time, whenever a consumer didn't like any product, he would not buy from that brand or just would leave that shop. Like if he doesn't like that particular brand, particular thing from particular brand, then he wouldn't go to that shop or to that, he wouldn't buy from that brand. That over a long time we have also seen many cases of like we have seen that all those big companies can manipulate the markets. And in what ways they can do so? By ways like you could say that by spreading the false information in media. You have seen many advertisements of many products of different brands. It could be goods or services as well. We have seen that it took a lot of years, and those are false information as well. Like for example, cigarettes. Now it took many years for consumer to prove that those all cigarettes are harmful to the health. They can cause cancer as well. And you might have seen that many companies, there was a milk powder company which said in the advertisement that its milk powder was so much good, was proved scientifically that it was better than a mother's milk. But after so much effort of the consumers in court, it was proved that it was a false statement. So in media we have so many false statements, and that is why we can't just believe them. Our eyes, you could say, our eyes blinded. So you could say that you have to be aware of all those things, and that is why consumer movement also arises, because of all those things. And that consumer movement arrived because of dissatisfaction with all those producers and shopkeepers, all those manufacturers. And consumer movement originated as a social force to all those for promoting, you could say that protecting and promoting the unethical, promoting the interests of the workers, of all those consumers, and protecting the consumers from unethical, those kind of discrimination in the marketplace, unethical treatment in the marketplace. Consumer movement rose, and because of it there was so much pressure. Now if we talk about the consumer movement, it arose in 1960s in organized sector. Like even before that there was some traces of consumer movement, but in 1960s it took a very great form, you could say, in simple language. See what happened that like in 1960s it became in organized sector, and till 1970s there were many consumer groups that upsurged, that you could say that came up with that movement. And in 1970s many articles were being written now, many pamphlets were being made now, and many advertising, many spreading among the people, awareness amongst the people was now being done till 1970s. And because of so much pressure, the government of India had to take some measures as well, and that is why in 1986 an act was passed in our country, that was Consumer Protection Act, that is commonly known as copra, that is COPRA, copra in simple language, that was issued in our country in 1986. So that was the impact of consumer movement to change. It was an effort by the people to change the situation in the country, because we can't just tolerate everything for every time. Like there will be more and more generations and they would have to change the data. So sooner or later it had to be done, and that did happen. So you could say that that was a situation of consumer movement. After that we have some consumer movement in international level as well, like we have United Nations. Now in 1985 the United Nations adopted various measures, various rules and regulations for protecting the consumer, for protecting the interest of the consumers, for promoting them as well. Now what happened that there are 220 groups, consumer groups from over 115 countries in United Nations that are joining this, that are participating in this consumer movement. So you could say that it is a very good movement for the benefit of all the consumers who are going to the market. See, you are also a consumer. If you are going to market and buying something, in one way or another we all are consumers, aren't we? After that we have the next topic, that is consumer rights. Now consumer rights. Now we have talked that in first place who are the consumers and what they can do, how they can exercise their powers. But what about the rights? Do they even have any rights? Yes, obviously, definitely they would have. Like everyone in our country has right. So all the consumers also have rights, and this is what we shall discuss. Now their first right is that safety is everyone's right. So safety is everyone's right. Now is that statement correct? Obviously it is correct. Like safety is everyone's right, isn't it? Now a story has been given in our books to understand this aspect, to understand this statement even better. Now there was a student of class 9th whose name was Reggie Matthew. Now what happened that he had a problem, he had a disease that is called a tonsils. For tonsils he was admitted to a hospital, in a private hospital in Kerala. Now an ENT surgeon performed the operation of tonsillectomy. Now that is to prevent tonsils, and he used a general anesthesia. Anesthesia you might have known, or even if you don't know, in science you will definitely read about it. Now he used a general anesthesia, and because of that, because he used general anesthesia, Reggie had some brain abnormalities and had you could say, and thus was crippled for his life. You could say that now his father was very angry. Obviously he would be, after all it was his son, and that is why he filed the report. He filed a petition in the State Consumer Dispute Redressal Commission. Now once again, State Consumer Dispute Redressal Commission, in which it said that the State Commission said that there was no enough proof, there was no enough evidence, and that is why no compensation would be paid to him. Now the demand of compensation by the Reggie's father was about 5 lakh, but not even a single penny was paid to him. Now again he filed a petition in the court, that was National Consumer Dispute Redressal Commission, in which it was proved that it was the fault of the hospital, and now it had to pay the compensation of 5 lakh rupees to Reggie's family, to Reggie's father, you could say. Now from this case what you can understand or study is that safety is everyone's right. Like we have seen that because of the mistake, just because of a little mistake can cause a very big harm to the body, can cause a very big impact to someone's life. Now just because using the general anesthesia, not good quality of anesthesia in a large amount, what happened that the Reggie's whole life has been disturbed, has been changed, has been impacted. Now he has been crippled for his life, and that is why we can say that there are some safety rules provided for consumers as well. Now Reggie here was a patient but was a consumer as well, consumer of the service. Now doctor, you could say hospital is a tertiary sector, in which if we look at in the marketplace Riji is a consumer, but he was not provided with his right. Now safety is every consumer's right. You know what, that even when you buy pressure cookers, in pressure cookers there are safety valves. Now if there is any problem in those safety valves, then a big accident can be caused through that. So you could say that safety rules must be followed. Like everywhere we have safety rules, in pressure cookers, in many other items, in medicines, in hospitals, in public transport as well. Like in public transport there should be less crowd. It's not like that there's a place for only 10 people and our 25 to 30 people are sitting over that. So that should not be the case as well. So safety is everyone's right. Be safe, we could say. After that, the next right that we shall discuss here is information about goods and services. So information about goods and services. Now you know what, that whenever you buy something, whenever they will buy something like some product or item, you might have seen in its packaging that there are some information written about it, that are ingredients used, date of manufacturing, expiring date, manufacturer's address, manufacturer company as well, batch number, and all those information. Why is it so? Like what are the rules for it? You know what, that we have the right to be informed. Every consumer has the right to be informed for all the, you could say, information about goods and services. Like in medicines we have directions for proper use, isn't it? Like whenever you buy any medicine, you would find a small kind of tab, a small like line that is directions for proper use, how you have to use. In garments you might have seen that instructions for washing, instruction for wash, or maybe some other sentence but with the same meaning. So you could say that information about all the commodity that we buy is necessary. Like it is a necessity of the people that we should have all the information about the goods and services that we are buying. Like if there isn't any sufficient information, then we can blame the shopkeeper as well, from which we have bought that. Like for example, if you have bought some commodity and if there is no expiry date, like if there is no expiring date, then you can change that product. You can blame the shopkeeper from whom you have bought that commodity. And if you have bought some food item and that is adulterated, like it has been expired, then you have to change. Like a serious action can be done as well, and that serious action can be done, you could say that severe action can be caused against the shopkeeper when he has sold the medicine that have been expired, because you know what, that medicines that have expired can cause a lot of damage to the body, and it has been seen in many of the cases as well. So that is why severe action can be done against that shopkeeper or from whoever you have bought that. After that, you could say that whenever you buy in commodity and if there is any defect, like if it is defective, something is not printed, there has been some misprint, then again you can go to the shopkeeper, say that it is your right to be informed. Why isn't there any information about goods? And another thing is that you know, you might have seen in packets MRP, that is maximum retail price. You know what, a price has been set up by the companies for selling of any commodity by a shopkeeper. Now that shopkeeper cannot sell any commodity with more than its listed price, the printed price, or what we call MRP, that is maximum retail price, even though many of the consumers do bargain with the shopkeepers about the prices. So you could say that, and even more, you know what, that this right to be informed has been expanded in October 2005. Right to Information Act was you could say that was issued in our country, it was passed in our country, introduced in our country, from which we have the right information almost for everything. Like every citizen has the right, every consumer has the right. Now citizen is in the, you could say that is in the aspect with civics, like political science, and consumer we are using in academic language, you could say that in statistical language. So you could say that those words mean the same in this aspect, but yeah, from the different subject they are meaning different things. Now after that, you know what, that there can be information given to you about almost everything, not everything, like you can't just know the secrets of the government, but yeah, about everything around you. Like for example, if you're living in an area and the road is not built very well, like it has been like that for many of the years, for decades, so you can ask the girl, you can say that information about the government, like why the road is like that, and you can ask for information, like if you have given them some interview, but that company is not responding to your interview, even though you have given such a beautiful interview, such a wonderful interview, and you can't even plan your future because of that. So you can just say that it is the right information, you can file a petition, and then you'll be informed about your interview. If you have given a very good interview, you will be selected, appointed as an employee in that company, otherwise you can plan your future career. After that, we have the next right of citizen, consumers, I mean, that is when choice is denied. When choice is denied. Now again, a story has been given for understanding this right of consumers. Now Abhirami, who is a student in Ansari Nagar, joined a coaching course of 2 years in New Delhi. Now she paid for 2 years course, that was amount of lump sum around of 61,020 rupees. But what happened that after 1 year, at the end of 1 year course, she found that it was not good for her, like it was not matching, the method of teaching was not matching, the method of teaching was not matching with her mark, and that is why she wanted to you could say that leave that coaching, leave that course, and that is why she was now asking for the money of 1 year, because she had only joined for 1 year course. Now like she did have pay the whole course fee, but still she joined only for 1 year. What about the other year? Now she wanted that money, but that coaching institute denied completely, and that is why she had to go to district level court, district level consumer court, where that you could say that the court directed the coaching institute to pay 28,000 rupees as she had only joined for 1 year. Now after that, the coaching institute again went. Now first time Abhirami went to district court, but now second time what happened, that coaching institute went to state level court. Now where it not said that coaching institute that we should not have paid her again. Now that state government, state court knew what had happened, and that is why it again directed it to pay 25,000 rupees to Abhirami and 7,000 rupees as compensation for it. So you could say that overall that coaching institute did have some loss. If it just only had given her money, then all this would not have happened. Now from this story, what happened, that state court directed all the coaching institutes, every course taking institutes, coachings, and the schools, that you will not just ask for the money in advance for the whole course, and not even in one go. If this happens again, if this kind of situation happens, then that coaching institute or that institute would have to pay back, and if it doesn't, then penalties, imprisonment can happen. So you could say that from this case, we have seen that every consumer has the right to choose. Now his choice cannot be denied by any of the producer, manufacturer, or service provider. Like everyone has a right to choose. Many a times what happens that whenever you go to buy a toothpaste, there is a compulsory thing that you have to buy a toothbrush as well, then only you can buy a toothpaste. So you could say that is against your choice. Your choice has been denied. You only want to buy the toothpaste, but you're forced to buy the toothbrush as well. And in more practical cases, what happens that whenever there is a new LPG connection in the houses, now that company forces them to have a new stove connection with them as well. Like they said that if you want new gas cylinders, then you will have to have connection with us as well. So even if we don't wish to buy that item, commodity, still they are forced to do so. They are forced to buy that commodity because their choice has been denied. So you could say that from this aspect, every citizen, every consumer has a right to choice. He or she can choose from whatever he wants, she wants. After that, the next right that we have here is, where should consumers go to get justice? So where should consumers go to get justice? Now we have seen that every citizen, every consumer have so many rights, like right choice or right to information and many more rights. But where they can go if their rights have been, if there is an aggrieved person, like we have seen the case of Abirami and Reggie Matthew. We have seen that many types of this type of cases do occur in our country. So in this case, in these cases, what an aggrieved person can do, let's talk about that as well with the case of Prakash. Now Prakash, who sent a money order to his village for his daughter's marriage, but he found out that it had not been sent to his village to his daughter when she needed, and even after 9 months, few months have passed, still the money has not been sent. So what are the steps that he had to take? Let's talk about them. Firstly, he had to go to post office to send the money order to his village for his daughter. He came to know that money had not been sent to his daughter. Again he goes to the post office. It is the third step. Again he goes to the post office, inquires about it. Fourth step that he would take is that the post office would not give the answer satisfactorily. After that he would take the step to go to the Consumer Council or Consumer Protection Council. Now there he would be suggested to file a petition, file a case in a court, in a district level court. Then he would go to the district level court, file a petition, file a case, and after that he would have to fill a form. In a form you could say that he would have to fill a registration form. In court he would plead himself. The court would listen to the other party as well, and then after listening to all the arguments of you could say that of Prakash and the other party, the judge would declare the court's verdict. So these are all the steps taken by Prakash. Now from this case we have seen that every consumer has a right to represent himself. Now what happens that we have seen that in our country there are so many consumer groups, commonly known as consumer forums or consumer protection council. Whenever there is something happens to a consumer, he can directly go to the consumer council, consumer protection council, consumer forum, where there is some advice would be given to him, so some suggestions would be given to him, and these are also voluntary. They are supported, they are financially supported by the government, but they are voluntary. They are helping the people. After that they can go to the district level court, state level court, and national level court. From this you might have already observed that every consumer has a right to represent himself in the court if anything has happened to him. Now according under the Act COPRA, you could say under COPRA 1986, there has been a 3-tier quasi-judicial system in our country, that is district level, state level, and national level. In district level courts we have district, you could say that full name will be District Consumer Dispute Redressal Commission, like commonly known as District Commission, District Consumer Commission, that would be established where there would be cases of around 20 lakh rupees, that would be to claim of 20 lakh rupees. In state level we have State Commission, that would be claim where they would be claim from 20 lakh to 1 crore rupees, and in national levels we have National Commission where there would be claim of more than 1 crore rupees. Now those claims could be of compensation. You could say that whenever there is an aggrieved person and when he has to be paid back, definitely if there is any damage it will be solved with money. So that has to be, there would be some compensations. According to compensation they are divided. But if in many cases this happens, what happens that many aggrieved person go to district level court but they are still not compensated. So if they aren't compensated even in district court, they can directly go to state court and then national court. So you could say that even if their claim isn't 1 crore or maybe 50 lakh, but still they can go to state level court, but firstly they will have to file a case in district court, and if there is nothing, no action going on, then that person, that aggrieved person, go to higher level courts. So you could say that is how the whole process turns out. Like we have seen that every citizen has a right to represent himself in the government, in the courts, and how all the process takes place for the consumer's rights. After that we have the next subtopic of right, that is learning to become well-informed consumers. So learning to become well-informed consumers. Now if all the consumers, if many of the consumers don't even know what their rights are, then how would the country go on? Like literally there will be nothing going on. If the consumers themselves don't know their rights, then what else the government can do? Obviously there must be some awareness among the consumers so that they will be well informed. You know what, that there are many consumers out there who don't even know about their rights and still are facing, unjust treatment and many more things. So in marketplace they are not in the equal basis. That should be done. That is why every consumer must be well informed consumer. What happens that in most of the cases these are only retail cases, so they don't even go for their compensation and many more things. So that is why there must be some well information among the people, awareness among the people that should be spread by the government itself. Like government should post some banners, advertisements you might have seen in TV, in government buildings you might have seen some of the schemes of the government that have been started. So awareness is a very, very important aspect so that people would know about their rights and still would fight for it. If they don't even know what they're fighting for, then how can they even start a fight? And you know what, under COPRA, this COPRA Act, you could say Consumer Protection Act, it has done so much reform in our country. Like in national level and state level, we have so many departments separating out for this particular consumer benefits, consumer verdicts, you could say. So you could say that every citizen has to be well informed. Another aspect is that in many of the commodities, you might have seen some logo like ISI or Hallmark or Eggmark. Now those are some certifications by, you could say that, by institutes. And now what happens that all those commodities have been checked by ISI or Eggmark or Hallmark. Now they would check the quality of that good or service, and then they allow that company, that manufacturer, to use their logos so that people would know that it has been certified by this company, it has been certified by this or that. So you could say that it is not compulsory in all the commodity, but yeah, in some cases it is very, very necessary, like that are for mass consumption or that are related to safety, like LPG gas cylinders, we have some pressure cookers, in those kind of items, in mineral drinking water. So in many of the things it is compulsory, but not in all the things. And you know what, that there is another aspect as well, like even if there is some checkups about the quality of goods and services, still it's not enough, it's not strong enough for the people to believe that, because there can be some fake among them as well. They would not that everything is right before your eyes, it could be some false information as well. So every consumer has to be well informed, then normally he can you could say that he can promote and protect his rights, his or her rights. After that we have got the next and last topic of this chapter, that is taking the consumer movement forward. So taking the consumer movement forward. Now, like we talked about consumer movement, and you know what, that consumer movement did have some impact in our country, but still there are so many things that need to be done. Like there are many consumers out there who don't even go to the courts, like their compensation value is very low, and when they are damaged by some expired commodity, or when mostly this happen, these kind of transactions happen in short amount, like in retail shops where they don't even ask for compensation, but still there are some effects. Like you know what, after consumer movements, around 700 consumer groups have been formed in our country. Out of them, 20 to 25 have been recognized and are well organized. But you know what, that there are some de facto of these consumer movement as well. Like they are not as, they are spreading but very slowly. There are many things that need to be done, that are must to be done by citizens, by consumers, by the government, by everyone in the country. Like consumers themselves have to be voluntary in these movements, they have to be aware, and then only it can forward. Like we have to spread it forward to everyone, to next generations as well, so that there would not be any discrimination. You know what, that over time consumer courts, consumer movements have become long process. Like you'll have to fill a form, then go to this court, that court, you'll just be running about and nothing will happen. Like in practical cases, it will take a long time for you to be paid off compensation, and after all you'll have to like if we have money, then only you can be benefited. Haven't you heard about this phrase? So that happens in these cases. Those with so much money can benefit it as well. And after that, they have to take every person. Now there is a case of lawyers as well. They have to take lawyers as well. Then like they have to engage. Every consumer now has to engage the lawyers as well. That was not done before. Like they could go to the courts without lawyers as well, with or without lawyers. But now it isn't being done. It has been taking so much time, long process, proceedings are so much, nothing is going to happen in practical. Like there are so many things in our case, in our court system, in the judicial system. That is why we have to bring this consumer movement forward, and that is the last chapter of this book. Like we have completed class 10th SST. In economics, we talked about development, in which we talked about incomes and other goals, different types of things, different goals, different people. We talked about money and credits, in which we saw that workers in unorganized sector, we talked about money lenders, interest rates that were very high. After that, we talked about some other things like about the, you could say that globalization and the Indian economy, what were its effect about this. After that, we talked about this chapter, like this was about everything related to, everything about consumer rights. We talked about consumers. We talked about who are consumers in the marketplace. After that, consumer rights, consumer movement that started, and this is all we have covered in this chapter. I've covered all the topics and subtopics, and yeah, this is the last chapter going to be. After that, we'll start the class 11th SST. So stay tuned for upcoming videos. Thank you very much.